Acknowledgement. As we gather together, we acknowledge the sacred land on which we reside. It has been a site of human activity for 15,000 years. This land is the territory of the Huron-Wendat and Petun First Nations, the Seneca, and most recently, the Mississaugas of the Credit River. The territory was the subject of Dish with One Spoon Wampum Belt Covenant, an agreement between the Iroquois Confederacy and Confederacy of the Ojibwe and allied nations to peaceably share and care for the resources around the Great Lakes. Today, this gathering place is still the home of many Indigenous people from across Turtle Island, and we are grateful to have the opportunity to work in the community on this territory. We are also mindful of broken covenants and the need to strive to make right with all our relations. Last but certainly not least, we acknowledge the people of African descent who were brought here against their own will or in search of a safe place to live their lives and raise their children. Reconnaissance des terres. En nous rassemblant, nous reconnaissons la terre sacrée sur laquelle nous résidons. C'est un site d'activité humaine depuis 15 000 ans. Cette terre est le territoire des Premières Nations Huron-Wendat et Petun, les Scéniques et plus récemment les Mississaugas de la rivière Crédit. Le territoire était sujet de l'alliance de la ceinture Wampum plat avec cuillère, un accord entre la Confédération Iroquois et Confédération des Ojibwe et des nations alliées à partager et à prendre soin pacifiquement pour les ressources autour des Grands Lacs. Aujourd'hui, ce lieu de rassemblement est toujours le foyer de nombreux peuples autochtones de toute l'île de la Tortue et nous sommes reconnaissants d'avoir la possibilité de travailler dans la communauté sur ce territoire. Nous sommes également conscients des alliances brisées et de la nécessité de nous efforcer de guérir toutes nos relations. Dernier point, mais non le moindre, nous remercions les personnes d'ascendance africaine qui ont été amenées ici contre leur volonté ou à la recherche d'un endroit sûr où vivre leur vie et élever leurs enfants.
This webinar provides illustrative information with respect to the subject matter covered and does not represent an official opinion or position of the Black Business and Professional Association. The BBPA makes no representations, warranties, or guarantees as to assume no responsibility for the content or application of the material contained herein, and especially disclaim all liability for any damages arising out of the use or reference to or lines on such material.
Hello, hello, hello. Good morning and a warm welcome to the BBPA's community space, the BBPA's financial literacy program, and I am Chanelle Smith. I'm absolutely delighted to be your host for the next 9 weeks. And before we dive into this exciting journey, allow me to share a little bit about myself. I've spent about 7 years working in the financial industry. I'm passionate about helping individuals and communities and achieving financial wellness. My journey in this field has led me to wonderful opportunities, and this wonderful opportunity to facilitate this program with all of you for the next few weeks. Over the next 9 weeks, we'll be exploring the world of credit rebuilding, and I couldn't be more thrilled to have you all here. It's a subject that we can sometimes feel as complex, but together we will break it down into manageable and actionable steps. So we've had the pleasure of having 2 remarkable facilitators, but today we will have Shaquille Shaq Hall. Shaquille Hall is a mortgage professional and an entrepreneur with a wealth of knowledge and experience in the financial industry. He is the founder of Hall Real Estate Investments, providing investment solutions through investing, acquiring, and renovating real estate. He's also interested in retirement funds and budget plans. He's not just a financial expert. Shaq is also a community leader. He's actively involved with nonprofit organizations, including mine. He's a financial expert. He's also advocated for financial literacy and the power of credit in order to build wealth. So thank you, Shaq, for sharing your incredible expertise with our community and for guiding us. We're in capable hands over the next few weeks, learning about credit, financial empowerment. Now let's continue with our morning journey towards financial empowerment with Shaquille Hall, who will be leading today's session. Is everyone ready? Awesome, let's dive in. Shaq?
Amazing, amazing. Can you guys hear and see me clearly? Okay, can you guys hear and see me clearly now? Perfect. I'm seeing some yes in the chats. Amazing, amazing, amazing. I'm excited, guys. I'm excited to be on this call. It is Saturday morning, so I want to thank everybody for tuning in on this lovely Saturday morning. You guys could be doing so many different other things with your morning, but you decide to come on, get some valuable information, and learn about credit and credit repair. And we're doing this over the course of the next couple of weeks. And I'm excited to share value, share my knowledge, share my experience, and help. And I just want to give a quick shout out to BBPA, Stephanie, Tafari, Chanelle, Danielle, and the whole team for putting this together and having me here as well too. Super grateful, super thankful. And yeah, like I said, I'm excited. So if you guys are excited as well too, we got to keep it fun because we got a couple weeks to do this, and we're on this webinar for another about 80 minutes. So we got to keep as fun as possible. So if you can do me a favor, with the group that's joined in, let's keep it as engaged as possible. So if you're ready to get started, I just want you to type some ones in the chat box for me. Just load it up, throw some emojis in there as well too. Anybody that knows me knows I love energy. I got my coffee here as well too, and the more energy I get from everybody joining in and tuning in, but the better this conversation is going to be. So I want you guys to all understand as well too, listening on this, this is a conversation. This is not a presentation. I'm not going to be on here preaching. We're going to be discussing credit topics, negotiation and credit repairs. And I'm going to need a lot of engagement from the audience as well too. So I'm going to talk about some open-ended questions, and I'm going to go over three main topics for today. Okay, does that sound good? Do I see the ones in the chat? Let me just take a look if you guys are here with me, if I'm getting the energy. I see the thumbs up. I see some emojis. Amazing. This is going to be fun then. I love it. I love it. So like I said, guys, today we're going to be talking about credit repair techniques and negotiation. I'm super excited to talk about this because this is something that I've done for myself. It's something I've done for my clients. And I can gratefully and humbly say that I've now helped hundreds of people, maybe even indirectly thousands of people. And we're not going to stop until we touch millions of people across the world and in their city and their community, helping them financially for the better, right? Whether it be with credit, whether it be with investments, that's kind of my specialty, okay? And I do believe that credit is a nice avenue, a nice channel to build wealth. And if you agree with me, put yes in the chat box. If not, hopefully I can change your opinion by the end of this conversation or at the end of this series. So today, again, as I mentioned before, or should have mentioned in the beginning, credit is essential for everything. When I do these talks, and it's been a minute since I did one of these talks, but when I do these talks, when I go to schools, when I talk to kids, when I do the non-for-profits, and they have me, they bring me in. One of the things that I talk about when it comes to credit, credit is your report card when you graduate school. It's your adult report card. When you hit 18, you get another report card that's going to show your financial health to lenders, right? Credit is basically going to show your responsibility, your character to these lenders that is going to allow you to gain capital on a trust-based system. So it's important for us to improve our credit financial health. And we're going to talk about ways that you can improve your health in multiple different facets, okay? So as I mentioned today, it's going to be split up into three main components and topics. And if I fall off track, I know my lovely co-host, my homegirl, Chanelle, is going to help me out to keep me on track and keep us on track. Because again, there's going to be other people. Feel free when we do ask questions to unmute your mic or type in the chat box that we're on topic of these three components. We're going to talk about strategies. We're going to talk about process. And we're going to talk about tips, okay, to navigate this complex world of credit and talk about these tips, these techniques in negotiation. Okay. So to start it off, I have a question. And again, I would love the engagement as much as possible. When it comes down to strategies, when it comes to, creditors and collection agencies, nobody likes to talk about collection agencies, but, yes, the last week or the week before, Tafari talked about the basics of credit and understanding credit. Today, we're talking about the ugly side. We're talking about, the negotiation going back and forth with creditors, with collection agencies, the not so good side about credit, right? If you do end up in these areas, and do not be afraid, we all go through these cycles of having amazing credit, but maybe even racking up debt and having poor credit, especially around this time of the year, being Black Friday and around Christmas time as well too. Uh, where we're in debt and we rack up these credit lines and credit cards, and people are calling us down to say that we got to make our payments down. So we're going to talk about negotiation of how to remove certain things off your credit report, dealing with collection agency. But I have a question for you, as I mentioned before. Have you ever tried to negotiate with creditors or collection agency? And I'm interested, guys, to hear some of your guys' experience. Okay. So this is a question for the audience, question for everybody. Has there anybody had a negative or a positive, but any negotiation process when it comes to creditors or collection agencies? And I would love to hear one of your guys' experience. Now, don't be shy.
I know we can use this a similar routine as before. You can raise your hands if you're familiar with the app. If not, I'm also paying close attention. So Tisha Daniel said no, but it's in my plans to do so. So I've negotiated to Rhonda said I've negotiated a pay for delete. So I guess she's saying she's negotiated to have a payment removed before.
Amazing. Amazing, amazing. So I'll share one of mine, and 100%. You can pay to delete. That's going to be one of my points I'm going to be talking about as well too. How to delete certain things off your credit report, and it's important, guys, to know where you stand, getting that credit report. But I can share, some instances for me. I'm not going to sit here and act like I'm perfect. I've had amazing credit. At times, I've had the highest of highs, and I've had the lowest of lows. And being in the industry I am, being an investor as well too, having businesses, credit is an avenue where you can leverage and borrow capital. And sometimes it's tough to pay it back, or there's situations that happen like COVID, or maybe business failure, or something happens where you're a little bit late and fall behind, and it affects your credit, right? Um, there's been points or a point in my life where I've had been in collections. And one of the things that I've done was I didn't avoid the call. I picked up the phone when they were calling. I let them know the situation. But more importantly, I knew they didn't care about the situation. And I'm gonna be honest with you, the creditors really, they'll act like they care, but they really don't care. Their bottom line is they want their capital back. Their bottom line is they want a solution to pay it off, right? So I was able to negotiate and have a settlement of the amount. Um, I can't remember the exact amounts, but let's just say I owed $500, and I went to collections. I was able to negotiate 50% off to 250, and I was able to pay that off and also get that removed off of my credit report by just talking to them, speaking with them, giving them some context, even though I knew they didn't care, giving them some context and providing a solution. So that is a story that I can kind of share with you guys. I'm interested and would love to hear somebody from the audience explain a story that they had, maybe something similar or maybe something different, or a negative experience that they had with dealing with
Yeah.
collection agency.
Carrie Ann is in the comments. She says, yes, to remove a derogatory remark from my report as part of a closeout. It took me time to negotiate it, but they did eventually remove it. And Carrie Ann, if you don't mind me asking, just a follow up to that, what's the timeline you were looking at for that? And maybe you can come off mute, share with us what the process was like as well, if you'd like to do that.
Sure. Thank you for giving me the space. The timeline, it honestly took me almost a year to get them to agree with it. But my amount was significant amount. Sorry, it was a significant amount. And so I just kind of worked at it. But again, it's making those commitments. One of the things that the individual said to me is the reason why they did it, whether they liked me or not, didn't matter, was the fact that they did see the payments coming in, and they saw that the effort was being made. And so in the end, by the time I made my very last payment, they were able to remove the remark from me. But what I will say is next time, and I didn't know this at that point in time, was that I should have gotten a letter ahead of time as the agreement from them saying that this is, if I pay in full, then they'd be able to remove the mark. However, I didn't get that. And so every time I was calling, it was kind of like a thing to negotiate with them. And so lesson learned, I would have probably saved myself a lot more money too in the end, but it's gone. So that's a blessing.
It's a plus for sure. Thank you.
So
It is amazing.
Shaq,
Sorry, was it somebody else?
yeah, Michael here.
Michael, hey, Michael, let's hear from you. Good to see you again this week.
Thanks very much. I myself have never had a challenge, but I've had to intervene, especially for one of my sons. And what I find is the collection agent, at least in my experience, these are the folks I had to work with. They were brutal. They were very rude. They were using a lot of negative. I didn't get the impression that they come to the person and say, "Okay, this is the state you're in." They didn't come with a solution base. They were forcing them in a corner to come to pay based on their arrangement, even though it wasn't advantageous to him. So when I got in there and tried to calm down the situation, they didn't want to talk to me. Took them a while for my son to say, yes, you can talk to my dad. But it came across very, very negative and scary, even before you get to the stage of negotiation. So I know the government has come with a system where they shouldn't be doing that anymore, but that was my experience working with the collection agents. It's a very scary, negative approach.
Yeah, I get that. I guess he's saying pretty intimidating, right?
Yeah, and trust me, guys, I
Actually,
get it.
very scary, not intimidating, actually very scary. I had to calm them down. They came like 5 persons came for this one guy. And I'm like, why you need 5 persons to talk to a man that owed $1,000? You know? And I had to get very intimidated and scared to them as well. I said to them, go look for the guy that owed 80 million and collect it from him, that kind of stuff. So I don't think that's the right approach, Shaq, but that is all that come across
Yeah.
first before you even get to the stage.
No, I
Talk
get for
about
sure.
negotiating. They don't
Definitely,
come
I get
across as
that.
let's explain and let's work out.
Yeah,
Sometimes the
and
original owners of the debt do that,
of
but
course,
not the
yeah.
collection agency.
Of course, yeah. And I definitely think Shaq is gonna make sure he gives us a lot more pointers and tips on how we can navigate in these situations. Obviously, these individuals are going to work, they have their jobs. So Shaq's here today to kind of teach us how to deal with and handle these situations, right, Shaq?
1000%, guys. I'm gonna tell you, this is how they're trained. They're trained to play the good cop, bad cop, the intimidation factors, the collection agencies. They may sound even rough on the phone, but understand your rights, right? Know your rights from the government website of Canada actually has a debt knowledge, kind of like a whole paragraph of and an article actually on different things that you can know when it comes to how to deal with them and how to speak with collection agency. And understand something I'm going to talk about later on. I'm going to go a little bit more into detail on it. It's called statute limitations of when debt is uncollectible as well too. When you know these type of things, you're going to speak on the phone a little bit more confident, right? You're going to understand how to speak with them. You're going to understand different phrases to acknowledge or not acknowledge on the phone as well too, because they can hold that against you. And I can't remember the first person who spoke, but when she mentioned getting things in writing as well too, when you are able to negotiate certain things, it's very, very important, because a lot of these times when you get the call from these collection agency, you're going to hear them say, This call is recorded for quality insurance purposes, right? They're recording you. So they're getting their data, they're getting their information of different things that you're saying as well too. But you got to make sure on your end, when things are being cleared up, when things are being settled, when there's agreement from their end and they're being recorded in their storage, make sure you have your documentation as well too. Right. So it's not a battle between them. They're more of your allies, and debt collection agencies. I'm going to be honest with you, as I mentioned before, they don't really care about the story of what's going on. They care about the bottom line and the solution. If you can come to a solution and an agreement and negotiate with them, everybody's happy. You have to create win-win scenarios when you are speaking with them. And it is good to provide them context, but just understand it comes down to the bottom line of how we're going to get this down and how we're going to get this removed off your credit report, especially if it's bad debt. And Tafari touched upon it last week. I'll touch a little bit on it as the course goes along as well too. The difference between good debt and bad debt, and making sure that you take care of that bad debt, and do everything in your power to try to get it removed off your credit report. As I mentioned before, your credit report is your adult report card. So you want to keep that as clean as possible. You want to get that score as high as possible. And you want to remove any derogatory inquiries and late payments as well too. And as we go along, again, we're going to discuss different tips. Okay, so is there anybody else that wants to share before I go into some negotiation tactics and dealing with collection agency a little bit more in detail? Anybody else that wants to share very quickly of experience? So far, so good. I love those two experiences so far. Yeah. Anybody else have dealt with any creditors, collection agencies, speak with them over the phone? You can either type in the chat box or
raise your hand.
Unmute your mic.
Yeah. Right now, I think we'll get you to move on, Shaq. I know, like, I've been in a similar scenario. It was Carrie Ann who added to the conversation earlier, just letting us know that it's important to get things in writing. And I've been in a similar scenario actually over crutches from the hospital. So I was unaware that it could have the results and the repercussions that it could have. And that they could handle it the way that they chose. And that was kind of my experience where I learned about derogatory, good standing, and that a creditor has the choice as to how they want to leave your debt with them. Tanya Reed said to us, I've had a collector calling me about my mom and my mother had passed away. So I'm sorry to hear that, Tanya. Shaq, do you know anything about that?
Yeah. I'm sorry to hear about that too. My condolences. It is definitely tough, especially when you're grieving and somebody has passed away and you have to deal with that. Debt does get transferred to school too. And this is why it's important as a community, to have these conversations, to understand that as well too. From my experience, I should have probably mentioned, similar to like Safari, I come from a financial institution. I used to work at TD Canada Trust for a few years. And unfortunately, I hated dealing with this process because it wasn't fun. We had to deal with a little bit of the estate process at the bank, being a financial advisor and seeing how debt was being transferred over to family members. So not only they're grieving, but now, $20,000 worth of debt, it gets transferred over to their loved ones or next of kin. And honestly, when it does get transferred over and you have to deal with it and the collection agency is calling you, again, it comes down to knowing your rights. It comes down to doing your due diligence, and same thing, same process happens. You're able to negotiate with them, right? Because I want you to understand as well too. There gets a certain point where these big banks, especially if it's with a bank, they get to a point where they write off this debt in their books as bad debt, right? And for my accountants on this call, you can appreciate that because you understand, bad debt collections or bad allowance category on the balance sheet that every kind of company has as part of their performance on their balance sheets and income statements, right? Financial statements. So they'll write it off and they'll sell it to these collection agencies where they're buying it for pennies on the dollars. So for them, they don't need to collect that entire amount all the time. And it's not for every case, but for most part, you can negotiate to get that either removed 100%, 50%, 20%. It all depends on what they're able to do with you with the specific. Every debt is a little bit different. But it's about negotiating with these creditors. So speaking with them, asking how long ago this debt was, understanding if it's past, especially here and I believe in Ontario. I know this call is across the country. Every province is a bit different, but the statute of limitation in Ontario is about 2 years. So once it's past 2 years, by right, by law, they cannot collect that debt anymore. So it's understanding areas where certain instances where you don't have to pay it. So it's knowing your rights. So one of the points that I did have here, guys, is to understand Fair Debt Collection Practice Act. So I want you to Google it. I'm going to type it in the chat here because it's very important for everybody to understand Fair Debt Collection Practice Act. And essentially, I'll also drop a link to Canadian website as well too. Oops. I'm on, we send to everybody here. So this basically is going to go over different, and I don't have time to talk about all of this in detail, but this basically goes over the Fair Debt Collections Act, Practice Act of what creditors, what collection agencies can do, and knowing your rights. So I'll drop a link to the Canadian government website as well too. Spend some time on here, guys. Do your due diligence. Understand, what your rights are when it comes to the lead, so that way you are prepared to have these conversations. If we're talking about credit, is your report card as an adult, right? You have to do your homework on the different types of debt. You have to do your homework on, how to negotiate and how to talk to these collection agencies, and knowing the amount of debt, the type of debt, whether being revolving or installment, and understanding the statute of limitation, if it is collectible or not, if you actually have to pay that off or not, right? Credit, even if you don't pay it off, let's just say it's past statute of limitation, it will be on the report. So keep in mind for about 7 years before it actually falls off, right? So you have to keep that in mind as well too. If you decide not to pay it off, it could have a negative effect on your purchasing power if you are going to apply for a mortgage as well too. But you have to understand which is good debt to remove, or which is the good debt to keep on your report, which won't affect you too much as well. So that's one of the things I want you guys to understand is Fair Debt Collections Practice Act. I dropped, I think, 2 links in the chat if you guys want to do your due diligence, the government of Canada, of knowing your rights for debt collections. And the second point I have here, guys, is to have an open communication. So just like we're having right now, have an open communication on different experiences with with debt. It's having open communication with the lenders, with the people who you owe the money to, right? They're not your enemies. They're not out to, as much as they sound very aggressive on the phone, they just want the bottom line, and it's coming down to a solution. So have an open communication, ask for a payment plan. They will work with you. Again, they just want a solution. If you can do $20 a month, whatever the case may be, as long as you're chipping away at the debt, they're willing to work with you. But the worst thing you can possibly do, guys, is to avoid the inevitable, is to avoid is to avoid them. It's not to answer their calls. Pick up the phone. Like I said, do your due diligence, know your rights, speak confidently, and there's a way that you can get your debt removed. There's a way that you can do a payment plan to chip away at that debt. And especially if it's bad debt, you definitely want to do everything in your power to eliminate that bad debt. Another thing is, go ahead.
Sorry, I don't mean to interrupt you. I just don't want you to move past some of the comments here. You got a little bit of a response, and I heard you kind of address her. So maybe you can directly address Tanya. She said, I really haven't trusted to speak to them about it. It's an old debt and definitely more than 2 years. So I know you were just touching on that. And maybe you can give her some direct advice, and then you've got one more after that.
No problem. Let me circle back to that. If it's past 2 years, again, it all depends on the type of debt. It's past the statute of limitations, so it's something that you do not have to repay back. And she has passed away. I would seek professional help. Speak with the individual that can help you with that avenue. Professional. I dropped I dropped the link in there as well too. In the chat box as well too. You can look that over as well. That can give you some more information of how to navigate that debt. And I understand not wanting to speak with them or address it, but it's something that I would advise to deal with, so that way they don't keep calling you. I don't know if they have you on their call list, but some of these collection agency, they'll call you every day at a specific time. And if you do not speak with them, they will continue. So sometimes it's picking up the phone when they call, and just be respectful and let them know, like, listen, do not call me during these times because I'm at work. Do not call me this time because I have to pick up my child. It's being direct with them and allowing them to speak with you in a time that's most convenient, and more importantly, understanding what type of debt is owed, asking the right questions of when this debt was established, when it was the last time it was collectible. Just getting as much information as possible can help prepare you to not having to deal with that anymore. That would be my advice when it comes down to it, is knowing the facts when it comes to the details, because it's probably very difficult to get a credit report on your late mother, but it's getting the details from the agency and then collecting that information and figuring out ways to navigate through it. That would be my best advice for you. If not, then speak with a professional and they can kind of advise you a little bit further.
Okay, great. Thank you, Shaq. And then you also had an anonymous comment in regards to a consumer report. One of our attendees asked if they can have a consumer's report removed from their credit card and what that process is like, their credit report, sorry, and what that's like.
I was anonymous. I was going to ask the person to unmute their mic. But are you talking
Yeah,
about a consumer
they did.
proposal?
I'm assuming they're probably talking about a consumer proposal. I'm not seeing the comment. They kind of direct messaged me, and I said that I would ask you anonymously on their behalf. So,
No problem. All right, so Mr. or Mrs. Anonymous, if you're talking about consumer proposal being removed off your credit card, is that what the question was?
credit report, consumer,
From your credit
there,
report.
yeah.
So consumer proposal either means that you had some type of agreement and you've done some type of consolidation, and it does have a little bit of a negative impact on your credit report, but not as bad as a bankruptcy. So you still can get things done, but understand that consumer proposal is going to be in your notes. When we do pull credit reports on my end as a mortgage broker, we can see that information on there, and I would say is to get the documentation as much as possible to show that this has been settled. This was the agreement, and it takes about 3 years, or I think 2 years, 2 years, 2 to 3 years roughly, for it to be removed off of your credit report. So it doesn't have too much of an effect on you, other than that they've noticed that you've done some type of consolidation. Some lenders will not touch you if you have a consumer proposal or or a bankruptcy. But there's ways around there. If there's a will to do whatever you want, whether it be getting a car loan at a certain rate, or a mortgage, there's always a way to get it done. You just may have to eat that 3 years of that being on your report, and sacrifice and get a higher interest rate, because once they see that, you're going to get a premium on top of your interest rate that we're currently experiencing right now. So just keep that in mind. But again, about 3 years, make sure you have your documentation in place, because every single lender is going to ask about that consumer proposal. And that's the thing about credit reports, guys, and having that and seeing that credit report. I love Equifax reports, more detailed. They also show a lower score, which a lot of lenders like to see, but it gives you all the information you need and you can't really hide from it. So just have your facts, have your documentations in place saying that it's been settled, and the details regarding that. And you have to kind of just wait that 3 years. So just a waiting period when it comes to consumer proposals. That's it. Hopefully I answered the question.
Awesome. No, I think you definitely answered the question. It was pretty direct. And then we've got Tanya said they have called her, but you actually already addressed that subsequent follow-up, and by saying you can have them request to call you at another time, something in that sort, and also stating your rights, knowing your rights. And then we have on a bore, I hope I said that correctly. If a debt is past status of elimination, so it's past that statute, can we request that it be removed?
Listen, you guys can definitely request it being removed. You definitely ask for a payment to be removed. The worst that they can tell you is no. And I want you guys to understand that too. Like, when it comes to negotiation and talking to these lenders, these creditors, the worst they can tell you is no. So yes, you can definitely ask. So even if you're somebody who's been doing amazing and you're on this call just to get some more information, and maybe you just want to you're on here with a family member, or maybe your kids are on this call with your children, but understand they're willing to work with you. So even if you ask to reduce your interest rate, and you've been doing well on your credit, your credit cards or your line of credit, they can do that too. Right? I've seen it firsthand. I've done it for myself. I've done it for clients as well too. You can get your interest rate reduced as well. You can get certain things removed off of your credit report, whether it being a missed payment for or a late payment, whether it be a missed payment as well too. They have the power to do that on their end. It's just a matter of, again, understanding your situation, understanding the facts, and being confident enough to speak with them, to ask them to do that. The worst they can do or say is no. So hopefully that answers your question. You definitely
And
can.
we've
I've seen
got
it
a follow
happen.
up for that one too, Shaq. Who do we
Yeah.
talk to kickstart the process? So is that the credit bureau?
Yeah. So who do you talk to is whoever is you're owing, your creditor. You want to go to them directly. The credit bureau, you can speak with your credit bureaus as well too. In Canada, it's Equifax and TransUnion. Those are two major ones. They also have Experian, but that's kind of more in the States. So you can go to the credit bureaus as well too. And you want to go to the credit bureau specifically if there's any discrepancies. If you've been a victim of identity theft, something's on there that's not yours, or if something on there is not correct, you can go through their process. They have a dispute process as well too on both TransUnion and Equifax, where you can either write them a letter, do it online, and by law, they have 30 days to get back to you to see if something can either get removed or they're gonna rebuttal and they're gonna tell you it has to stay or you have to provide more proof. But it's these actionable items that's gonna help you long term and that can save you thousands of dollars in the course of 5 to 10 years. This is the aspect why I say, having good credit and taking the time to go on these websites, go to the creditors directly, or if you don't want to go to them directly, you could start by going to the credit bureaus first, right? But the most effective thing is dealing with the creditors directly, even if it's gone through collections as well too. You may want to deal with the creditors directly or the lenders directly. So you can do both to answer the question.
Awesome.
My personal preference is going to the lenders directly. I deal with Equifax too. I've done Equifax and TransUnion and filed letters. And again, they have to respond within 30 days.
I've actually got a question for you. If you have an account that's on your credit report and it's been sitting at $0, who would you go to for that? Would you be going to the credit bureau or would you be going to the creditor?
Give me some more context. What do you mean it's at $0?
So remember those crutches I was telling you about?
Mm-hmm.
Those same crutches, hypothetically, let's say there's a $0 balance and they've been sitting there for, let's say, hypothetically 2 years. There's been a $0 account sitting on said credit report. Who do you go to have that removed? Are you going back to the creditor, even though the balance is $0, or are you going to the credit bureau?
So this is a tricky thing. Once it's gone through collections and you paid it off, it's gonna
Mhm,
say collections item, but paid $0.
mhm,
That will stay on your report for a minimum, I think, 3 years. I
mhm.
don't think you can get it removed within that time period. You can try going to the collection agency and say, listen, I paid you guys off, remove it. Again, the worst they can say is no. But
No.
from my knowledge, once it's gone through collections, unfortunately, and this is why you want to be preventative. We're on this call, we're talking about tips and tricks, right? Do not allow yourself to get to collection because once it goes to collections, it's a little bit more challenging, right? So once it's gone to collections, unfortunately, sometimes it does stay on your report for about 2 to 3 years. I've had instances where I've paid it off of a collection item. I think I had some parking tickets that I just didn't want to pay, and they'll go into collections through a municipality. I paid them off, and then the following couple of months, I checked and it was gone. It was deleted off the collections item. So there's some instances where it does get deleted. So I guess it all depends on the collection agency when it gets reported. To answer your question, but for the most part, will stay on your report, unfortunately, for 3 years.
Thank you. Awesome. I think
That's
you've
rough because
addressed
every province is
everything.
a bit different.
Yeah.
Every province is a bit different as well too. I'm just speaking on from what I know in Ontario here.
Okay, sounds good. And I think you've addressed everyone's comments in the chat so far, and keep with the comments and everything. I'm pretty quick in here getting to everyone. But I think you can continue, Shaq. You can proceed with us.
Amazing, amazing, amazing. Thank you guys. It's been so fun so far. Keep the engagement coming as we go along. Like I said, it makes some fun. It makes this fun, and I'm sure you guys are getting some value from this as well. So we're gonna keep it going. So as I mentioned before, you can do payment plans. You can offer for settlements, payments in full. Always, 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 guys, when you are sick, when you are not feeling well, right? We go to the doctor, right? We let them know what we're going through and we seek professional help. Just like that, your financial health, if you need help, we are here to help you out, and seek advice from a professional all the time, no matter what. Some of them it does, cost to seek professional advice, but in the long run, you are saving a lot, and it's going to help you propel yourself a lot further. Because again, the credit report we need it for almost everything when it comes to getting a mortgage, car loans, credit cards at best rates possible. You will definitely want to take care of your credit as much as possible. Okay, so hopefully that give you guys some great tips when it comes to negotiation, dealing with collection agency. The next point we're going to talk about, guys, is explaining the process. So some of you guys asked about the process. I discussed it a little bit, but we're now going to go into more detail of the process of credit repair and rebuilding credit. Okay. So before I go into a little bit more points, again, we're going to open up the conversation. We're going to get some feedback from the audience. Sorry. And that question I have for you guys is what is your people are probably not going to share this, but roughly a credit score. What is your current credit score? And what steps have you taken to improve it? And I would definitely love to hear some success stories or somebody who's maybe in the low 400s or maybe 500s, and they've done things to their current credit scores, maybe 750 right now or 800. What were some of the steps that you did to take in to improve it? And this is going to help me talk about the points that I have to improve your credit score, because I know there's people on this call right now that's probably has been through a divorce or loss of a business failure, or gone to school and maybe had to put things through their credit cards and rack up a lot of debt because of their education, and has now a professional gone through the corporate ladders and obtained an amazing job and has gotten themselves out of that situation where now they're at a better state. I'm interested to hear from the audience, from everybody on this call, of different experiences of where your credit score is now, where you're coming from, and what's some steps that you've taken to improve it.
While we give people a
Let's see.
chance to chime in, I'm going to actually answer you. Oh, I know it takes no time for anyone to forget my answer. We've got Taronda has 720 paid down debt. My utilization was my biggest problem. That was pretty much going to be my first two answers too. I paid off my credit card and I fixed my utilization ratios. Knowing to pay down before the statement closed. So she worked on her rules and she wants to get to 800 coming from 680. So that's really good, Taronda. Thank you for sharing.
I love it, Taronda. I appreciate you for sharing that. It's amazing. That's 40 points up. And yeah, it's the smallest things, guys. It's understand those 5 C's of credit. The utilization is, I think, 35% of and making your payments on time of your credit uh categories that they look at. That actually improves the algorithm. It's this algorithm that they use to increase your points. So utilization and paying your bills on time is one of the biggest major factors. So just by, let's just say your credit card is $1,000, just by low, and you have let's just say debt of 950, almost a maximum. Just by lowering your debt to like $400 on your credit card and keeping a low balance of 30 to 40%. I always told my clients specifically, aim to 20%. You want to go lower than the average that they tell you, 30%, aim for 20%. So if you have $1,000 credit card and you're aiming to carry a balance of only $200 or $300, just by doing that alone, just like Toronto, you can shoot up like 40, 50 points. I've seen it done, and it happens very quickly too. I've seen it done and change in like 2 months, 2 cycles. So understand as well too, these lenders are reporting to the credit agencies every 30 days. And they do it at different dates, but roughly or every 30 days. So you're gonna see your report change every month. You know, it can happen every week as well too, but usually the reports get sent out every month. So amazing, Rhonda. I love that experience. Anybody else that wants to share?
In the meantime, what I was going to share was I had a credit score of 452 when I turned 21. I got my first credit card at 18. I had no idea what to do with it. It was the only thing I had. It caused my credit to completely plummet. Sorry, the first time I checked my credit, 452 was my amazing credit score, and now I sit not to like kind of fluctuate between like let's say 720 bit and like 740s up and down, like depending on if I'm being a good girl. So that would probably be my story. Let's see, and we've got Michael wants to share. Go ahead, Michael. I'll give you the floor.
Just have a question for Shaq. He may speak about it later, but because we're talking about building scores now, um, from your experience, is it easier for your scores to drop with simple things and more difficult to increase it with doing making that good faith effort? Because what I find is that you get a credit card early in the day, and quickly, as the host just mentioned, you drop to 420. But then it take almost like a lifetime to move it back up. So, I just wonder if the weight is more on the negative side than the positive side. And what's your experience with that?
I love that question, Michael. It's always the pain of loss that's always outweighs the pain of gain. So 1,000%, it is easier to make your credit score drop than it is to gain it. But if knowledgeable and understanding how credit works, and conversations like this and this series as well too, why it's so powerful, you can get it up very quickly if you know exactly how to deal with these creditors, if you know exactly the 5 C's, if you know the weighted balance of what affects your credit negatively, right? What makes it go down? Again, which is the major one that we spend a lot of time talking about is utilization and making you paying your bills on time, right? And then it's having a mix of different credit. Some people don't have enough credit. Some people only have, maybe one credit card and nothing else, maybe an overdraft. You need a car loan, you need installments, you need a mortgage, you need a car loan, you need revolving as a line of credit. You need more than one credit card, something that you can manage. Obviously, your income has to suffice that. But yes, to answer your question, it is easier to pull your credit down, than it is to raise it up. But I've seen, by understanding how to deal with your situation, which I'm going to talk about the tips now, very shortly, is by understanding where you stand and creating a plan, you can get your credit score, almost 100 points in 6 months. 6 to 8 months is where I've seen a substantial amount of credit increase from some of my clients and some of the people who I've worked with, and shared some of these strategies that I'm going to share with you guys today. Any other
Awesome.
questions?
And we actually had something earlier that I didn't want to neglect. When you were referring to creditors, and I guess this still ties in and addressing our credit report and our financial health, there was an individual that said, what if they reach out to a creditor and they're not contacted back within 30 days? What do they do at that point? And I don't know if you were able to address that or not. And
Yeah,
then we've got one more for you when you're finished.
okay, perfect. So real quick, so I want to get through all the questions and so we can keep going. Real quick, you're gonna want to, if you reach out to the creditor and they'll get back to you in 30 days, then you escalate it. Everything is a chain of command, right? So if you go directly to the creditor, now you want to go to the credit bureau reports, right? Now you want to go to the credit bureaus specifically and file a complaint through them, or reach out to your credit bureau. If that doesn't work within 30 days, credit bureaus usually respond to you within 30 days. If that doesn't work, then you may want to seek legal advice. Now you may want to deal with a lawyer, right? To write something on your behalf, to take care of that, to get whatever you need removed, right? Just it's always chain of command. You definitely want to deal with them directly. If not, you go to the credit bureau. If not the credit bureau, then you want to get yourself a great lawyer to represent you.
Perfect. And then we've got Natalie's been waiting a bit. Natalie, you can come off mute and go ahead and share with us. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much for taking my question. So I have the Borrowwell app, and I've been noticing that my credit score has been going down. And so I went in there to see what was going on. It was like late payments, and I was searching. I couldn't think of any late payments. I usually pay my stuff on time. I know credit utilization is an issue for me, but I also own a property where for all the utilities, I'm the owner, but the bills go to the tenants. And I called and I realized that the tenants were making their payments. And so can that affect my credit score?
So are you asking if the tenant's paying the bills for the utilities can affect your credit score?
Yeah. If I'm listed as an owner,
So
for the
so
utility, yeah.
what have I done with my properties, investment properties, and some of the tenants I've dealt with? I've actually had the accounts transferred in their name, and then if it's transferred in their name with their credit, it's not going to affect you as the
Okay.
owner of the house. They're controlling that account. Because remember, credit is reported on accounts, not the property itself.
Okay. Okay. Well, I pulled my credit report and I have to go through it
Yeah,
to figure out what's happening there. But I just wanted to
for
figure that
sure.
out. Yeah.
And Borrowall, just to commend you, is in a great, phenomenal app as well too. I'll drop links and stuff in here as well too, and just remind me at the end. We'll make sure every link that I drop, you guys can have access to as well. But it's great because sometimes it gives you some tips as well too of different things that is affecting it, and it does. If you want more detail from Borrow, because Borrow is a third party to Equifax, pull your Equifax report and you can get that for free online as well too. It gives you more details of missed payments. It actually goes through every month, paid on time, there's a check mark. If not, then you have X, and then you can go to that more in detail. And that's part of my one of my points as well too that I'm going to go through real quick to let you guys know how you guys can go through the process to improve your credit score.
And
I'll
I
take the
think
next question.
yeah, I think she might have to reach out to you personally too, Shaq, because it sounded like just a bit of miscommunication there. I think her thing was that she had put the utilities in her tenant's name.
Mm,
However, when she checked her credit report, she's getting negative remarks in regards to late payments, but she's not aware of any late payments. So you guys might have to connect. I would say connect with Shaq so that he could get maybe like a look at your particular
for sure.
situation. Yeah. Okay,
Yeah,
so
for
we'll
sure.
go to
Because
yeah. Go
yeah,
ahead.
yeah. I just want to add to that before we go to the next question. Yeah, because to be honest with you, because I know there's people on this call that are probably dealing with the same thing and maybe have had that same instance. Now it's really the utility companies problem because at the end of the day, if it's in their name, maybe the account's not registered in the name properly. It shouldn't be affecting you personally. So we'll take a look at that. We can connect and by all means, we'd love to help you out. All right, next question. Sorry.
No, thank you. So Randy P says, well, I call the credit card companies and ask them to increase the credit limits to lower the utilization rate. But you have to be careful with spending when you have more access to credit. And I think we kind of talked about this last week with Tafari or 2 weeks ago, Tafari as well, the difference between requesting more credit and having more credit offered to you and how that affects your credit and that kind of stuff. So maybe you can speak.
Okay, so speaking on, on requesting more credit and how that affects you.
Yeah. Yeah, he said
Okay,
he requested more credit, but you kind of have to be careful because when you get access to more credit, it also increases your spending. So that was
for
his
sure,
comment. Yeah.
for sure, 1,000%. I can address that really, really quickly. You got to know yourself. What are you currently making right now? Is your income suffice to handle more credit as well too? Because credit is a good thing if used correctly, but if you cannot manage it properly, it's going to hurt you even more. Sometimes increasing your credit limits on a card can help bring your utilization a bit lower, right? So if you are $1,000 and now you have a $5,000 credit limit, right? Now your utilization is going to be lower based on the amount that you owe on your credit. So it can increase your credit as well. But now it's now managing an additional 4K more on your credit card. And that's just a basic example that I'm explaining. But 1,000%, that's a great point. You have to know yourself. You have to know what your current income is. Do not spend the money that you don't have, because you're gonna have to pay it back. We have this imaginary mindset of credit that we don't have. Listen, you have to pay them back. So spend what you have and create good habits. And as you tune along, I love these questions because I know hopefully it's lighting a fire under some of you guys to continue to tune in every single week, because as we go along, we're going to be talking about positive habits. That's one of the topics we were talking on another call. But you want to create these positive habits, positive behavior when it comes to dealing with credit and understanding how to utilize it properly. So great point.
Yeah, awesome. And I think you actually just mentioned the next comment in the chat there towards me was, if someone is new to credit and doesn't have a track sheet, what are some positive habits that they need to have? And we do have a segment. I want you to answer it, Chuck, but I don't want you to dive too deep, because we do have, as you just said, we obviously want everyone to continue to come for the curriculum. We do have a whole seminar on creating good habits, but definitely you could probably go ahead and address that one. New
I
to
would probably
credit.
talk about a little bit, because again, I want you guys to tune in and
Yeah,
come back next week. Invite a
exactly.
friend, invite your children,
Yeah,
invite an auntie or uncle, because this is how we're gonna all grow together and understand one of the greatest things in this country is credit to establish wealth, right? So positive habits is just paying your bills on time. It's understanding the mix of different credit lines, being mortgages, car loans, credit cards, lines of credits, overdraft protection, understanding the difference between all of those. Having a schedule, understanding the payment date and report date, very important. Reading the fine print on your credit reports, your credit card statements, seeing how long this interest is going to take to pay it off in whole if you make the minimum payments. So understand not just the minimum payments, but you want to make more to take care of the principal. Understanding how debt works between principal and interest. There's two main components that they charge. Make sure that you are in mindset to pay down your principal, not just the interest. So that's some of the key positive mentality, positive habits to build credit. But again, I'll go into more detail and I'll talk about some more gems as you tune in. So make sure you spread the word and we keep it going.
and we have, can you talk about the difference between Equifax and TransUnion? My TransUnion score is higher and they pull it more than Equifax.
Yeah, so real quick, the two main bureaus in Canada, Equifax and TransUnion. The reason why TransUnion is higher, because less creditors actually report to TransUnion, more creditors actually report to Equifax. I personally like Equifax better because it is more realistic, but it's great to pull both of those credit reports. You can free online and you can look into detail. And as you're going to see, there's different things that they report. So all it is, it's different lenders that are reporting to these credit bureaus. That's why it's difference in scores.
Awesome, great. So I think that I know Monica just asked us if you could speak on some of the usual fine prints to be wary of when it comes to credit cards. But again, obviously, briefly, but it seems like everyone really wants you to get into next week's topic. I see what you guys are doing here, but answer briefly. But again, a lot of like the going forward, the next steps, the building good habits and what to look out for will be in next week's session. But you can go ahead with that one, Shaq.
Yeah, it'll be in next week's session. And you can just
So
take a look at your credit card statements or line of credit statements, any credit product statements you have. There's fine prints at the back, as well as there's fine prints. Sometimes even on the first page of it as well too. Just see some of this stuff. I'm gonna be honest, you're even reading it, you're not gonna understand it. And that's when it comes to having, a lawyer or somebody break that down. But again, tune in next week. We got you covered. We're gonna talk a little bit more in detail about that. So I'm gonna keep it going because we're at
it's a question,
the hour
Chad.
mark already. I have a few more to go through. Sorry?
Ask a
So
question
go
both
ahead,
of them.
Michael. We'll let you go ahead.
just to give you that buffer for next week. As I listen to you, you answered the question just now about the different scores from Equifax or TransUnion, and the answer you provide is that more uh, creditors were reporting to Equifax than TransUnion. Do you know who funded these two major organizations? How they're funded? That would probably lead to one reporting more than the other. How are Equifax and TransUnion funded as an organization? Do you have any idea how that is done?
Sorry,
I don't
I missed the
know if
last part.
I don't know. Do you have that answer, Michael? Would you like to share with us if do you have that answer?
Not really. I like to generate the discussion and learn as I go along, but it was
Okay.
interesting to hear from Chuck, who's an expert.
Yeah,
I'm not an expert on credit, so I'm learning now. I have a few questions, but he's an expert, and what came across is that more people, more creditors are reporting to Equifax than
yeah.
TransUnion, and it just
T- t-
struck
t-
me how is
t-
those two organizations funded? Is it funded by the creditors who are putting in this information there, or is it funded by people like you that bring up the reports and you pay a subscription each year to do that? It just struck me how, because those people control people's lives, especially in a free
yeah,
market economy. Those
yeah.
credit scores for people's lives.
Well, we'll get in a little bit more in detail next week. But what I can say very briefly on today's call, um, it's funded by a lot of the things that you mentioned before. Subscriptions. It's also funded by the same thing that funds our banks and our whole economic system. It's through the government and the international money fund, and we'll get into more a little bit more detail next week. But yeah, they're all kind of working together, and it's a system that they create to judge somebody's character, right? That's why they have so much control of how somebody pays their debt, and it's an algorithm, as we talked about today, of different ways that you can work around it to increase your credit score. So,
Awesome.
as I mentioned before, yeah, there's another question.
Yeah. You've got this one's a little bit personal. I left your social media. Someone just interested in getting into the credit industry and wants to know how to connect with you. This is our second session to answer that question. Since we started, this is our second session. We had a break due to the long weekend. We'll be going until December 2nd. You can correct me if I'm wrong. I think you've gotten to all, we're totally caught up on all the questions and comments. So I think you can proceed with your program there, Shaq.
Amazing, amazing as well too. I just want to quickly shout out to Fari as well too, and what he got going on with Hutzy Financial. That's another application that you guys can sign. It's now on both platforms of Google Play and Apple App Store, I believe. And that's another app where you guys can use to track and use the debit card to build credit as well too. So shout out to him. We definitely got to champion our community, our people who are doing some phenomenal things, and support it as much as possible. So yeah, that's another avenue where you guys can learn how to spend properly and build credit, save, and track your financing as well too. So as I go along, um, yeah, so we talked about a lot of the things already. So some of these questions kind of hit the points already. So we were at, what was the last talking about here? We were at, oh yeah, creating a personal plan, consistently paying your bills on time, and gradually building good credit history. And as we'll talk about that in the next segment as well too. I'll go on to the next point now. It's tips on removing negative items from your credit report. And uh, a question I have for you guys to kind of keep the conversation going very quickly is, and we'll take a couple, maybe 2 or 3 questions on this, so I can just keep it going along, or maybe 2 questions on, or 2 answers on this. Is have you ever tried to remove a negative item from your credit report? And if you have tried to remove a negative item from your credit report, what are some of the challenges that you face? What are some of the challenges that you faced in the past for removing something negative off of your report? And negative, I mean, I'm talking about, as an example, missed payments, late payments, um, Anywhere in that aspect, any derogatory term, negative as collection item as well too. Has anybody removed something successfully, and what were the challenges that you faced, other than obviously time? Because it takes some time going back and forth with these lenders and collection agencies as well. Does anybody want to share an experience real quick?
So I know that similarly to what you've mentioned, I use TransUnion, not Borrowell, but I can see my month by month payments and the ticks and the X's for each of my payments. I know with one of my accounts with Fido, I had a late payment, and initially I saw an X, and I was able to work out a payment arrangement at that time. And once the month was actually finished, so I guess the arrangement was done being paid and the cycle was actually over, that X transformed into a check mark. So they actually had corrected or whatever it is that they do on their end for my, I guess, ability to make an arrangement and to follow through with that arrangement. I actually was able to have that missed payment kind of taken back or corrected. So I know
Yeah.
I went through that before with Fido.
Yeah, and I think you mentioned something very, very important to know. It's pulling these reports. We can't express it enough. Knowing where you stand, looking through them, taking the time to look at your own personal report card, your credit report, and seeing the inaccuracies in the bureau reports. I would pull both of them so that way you can see the difference between them and seeing what's reported and what's not reported. And then again, having these conversations, we're going to go back because today we're talking about techniques and negotiation tactics. It's having these conversations with these these collection agencies, with the lenders specifically, and then negotiating. Because once you have that knowledge on your reports, it's taking that knowledge and asking and figuring out different ways that you can strategize to get them removed. Right? It's a big business that they're in. So trust me, again, they care about the bottom line of ways that you can get it removed. In some instances at the beginning, somebody said they paid to delete something. I personally have paid to delete things off of my report as well. So even asking them specifically, what would it cost for me to get this removed? You know what I mean? It's like understanding and getting the agreement and make sure that you get it in writing as well too, right? Especially if you're doing some type of settlement, okay? And figuring out ways you can pay that down is definitely is key, right? And asking for goodwill adjustments as well. If you have good relationships with these lenders, don't be afraid to talk about it. If you've been banking with someone from the time you were 16 years old, or your parents opened a bank account for you very early, and you've been banking with them for 20 years, 25 years, 30 years. Some of you guys have banked with some banks for 40 years. It's don't be afraid to give them the stats of your relationship with them. They value your relationships, or they should value your relationships. If not, you can always use the tactics against them and say, listen, I'm closing my accounts and I'm moving to Scotia. I'm closing my accounts and I'm moving to RBC. I promise you, they're going to start to talk about different promotions, different things they can do to help you out. You will be surprised. But it all starts by knowing where you stand and having these conversations with the lenders, even physically going into these banks, right? I know a lot of them are going digital now, but most of them, they still have the tellers, they still have the financial advisors, they still have the bank managers and customer service managers as well too, that you can go into them if you have something you want to dispute, or if you're just tired of these interest rates that we're experiencing right now. There's only so much they can do, but I promise you they can reduce a certain amount of interest rate if you are a good paying customer and you have a good relationship with these institutions as well. So it's having these conversations, requesting goodwill adjustments, paying your debts on time, paying to delete certain things off your credit report, and more importantly, understanding discrepancies on your report for late payments or something that you didn't know or something they failed to communicate as well too. There's been class actions, there's been legal things that you guys can look up and do your due diligence on reports or situations where sometimes these lenders change their rates, where sometimes these lenders they charge you a certain interest rate, or they've been what is it called again? Compounding, change their compound interest on their credit cards, right? I've seen a class action of, instead of doing compounding annually or semi-annually, they started charging customers and clients a monthly compound. And if you understand the power of compound interest, Albert Einstein, one of the great minds of the world, said this is the best way. Compound interest is the eighth wonder of the world. Those who understand it, earn it. Those who don't, they pay it, right? So understand compound interest, so that way you can realize on your credit report how is this interest being calculated as well, and that is on your fine prints as well. I know it's very difficult to read, but speak with a professional and they can kind of break that down of how that works on your specific line of credit or credit card. Even your mortgage as well too. Have your mortgage advisor go through the documentation with you, understanding how those interests work as well. So very important for removing credit items. So I'll keep it going. This process of negotiation, going back and forth, of removing different things off your credit reports, it is going to take time. It's going to take persistence. It's going to take patience. And some of us don't have that patience or that time. So some people, they pay a monthly subscription, whether it be through Borrow or some credit repair agencies, that they pay $20, $100 a month or something like that, where somebody does that on their behalf. If you don't have the time, you can do that and pay somebody on your behalf to fight for you. But they're gonna do exactly what I'm telling you guys right now. So if some of you guys have that burning desire to improve your financial situation, your financial health, it's just taking the time to do that yourself, right? But if you don't have the time, you can always pay these agencies to do it on your behalf. But they're going to do the exact same thing. They're just going to call them. They're going to look through the discrepancies, and they're just going to go back and forth with letters through the bureaus, directly through the lenders, or through a lawyer. All right. Those are kind of the three main channels that things are reported, kind of chain of commands. Okay. So that's what's going to take. It's going to take persistence. It's going to take patience. It may take months. It may take a year or 2 years, but in the long run, again, as I mentioned before, this can save you thousands of dollars. Me being in the industry and seeing it as well too, doing mortgages, save you thousands and thousands of dollars a month or annually by just having a good credit score, right? Because debt, we need to use debt properly. We need to leverage it properly to build wealth. So don't be afraid to ask questions, just like in the chat, on webinars like this. Don't be afraid to ask questions from the creditors as well too. Because the people who ask the most questions are actually learning, and are actually are interested in their financial health. That's what I do find. People who ask the most questions are people who are serious about their financial health. And it's important to ask the right questions. There's no dumb questions. If you don't ask, you're not going to learn. So I'm a firm believer in asking questions. As much as I sit here in front of you guys as an expert as well too, I ask a lot of questions as well. I love learning. I'm a student of life. So I love learning. I don't have my master's like my beautiful co-host right now, who's pursuing her master's. Shout out to Chanelle. And by the way, I love to see more women in finance. I know I'm off topic right now, but I love to see women in finance they're doing their things, guys. Make sure that we start to, just like in the tech space as well too, we support those who are women and minorities in finance realm as well too, and we champion behind them. But going back to my point, we want to highlight the journey of repairing your credit. And it's not going to be an easy fix or a quick fix. As much as I said it takes 6 months, it takes 6 months if you understand. And it's taken 6 months for previous clients. It may not take 6 months for you. It may take a year for you, maybe 2 years. But we want to understand the process, because this is not a new formula that we're doing. Credit system has been around for centuries, guys. It's been around for a while now, right? So it's understanding and learning from other people's experiences, learning about the journey of fixing your credit and taking care of your financial health, and understanding it's going to take the time, it's going to take the patience and persistence. Okay, so I'm not going to get into too much Sorry.
Hate to interrupt you. Before you move on, I just want to read you this comment here before you get into the next topic. Tanya left us a comment. She met Hutzi CEO. That was when you were just addressing Tafari there and Hutzi and building your credit through debit. A few weeks ago at a Black Founders Network event, I know of that event too. It's great what he's doing with the debit to rebuild credit. I don't use my debit cards for anything other than withdrawing money. I use my credit cards like a debit card, and with automatic payments, that's helped me get to my higher credit score. So Tanya shared that with us. Thank you,
Tanya,
Tanya.
shout out to Tanya. Tanya is giving the gems right now.
She
Automatic
is.
payments to your
Thank you,
credit
Shaq.
card.
Thank you, Chanelle.
Um,
Good
and yes,
morning,
it's
guys.
amazing what Tafari is doing as well. As I mentioned before, we must definitely champion somebody like that because what he's doing is the first. Yeah, that's what it is. It's going out to these networking events, having these conversations, understanding these gems. It's not only taking the information and learning and applying, but it's also teaching it to somebody else, right? I think that's very, very powerful. And yeah, the goal is to get your credit score as high as possible so that when you are borrowing, you're getting the best rates possible. You're getting the best products possible, and you're leveraging credit the right way. And there's different hacks when it comes to like credit cards where you're now spending, like as she mentioned before, she uses her credit card for everything and then she pays it with her cash out of her account. That's very smart because now these credit cards, especially this is my thing. I love premium credit cards. I love the most expensive credit cards possible. The reason being because it pays for itself. And even when you do get it, let's say a pre-approval, usually they waive the annual fee for the first year, right? And if you're using it wisely, you're gonna make it back in tenfolds in the span of that year, that following year. But it's understanding to use credit like a debit card. And if you have the capital, which you should, right? We're talking about good habits and stuff like that. And we're gonna talk about it more next week. It's paying automatically from your credit, from your cash that you have in your account. And that creates good habits and that's going to increase your credit score tremendously. So Tanya, shout out to you. I'm glad that you mentioned that success story because that's exactly what it's about. And that's exactly why I'm here to speak with you guys today. Um, I think that was the last comment, right? Let me just continue going on. Almost done, and
Yeah,
we got a
Shaq, go
couple more
ahead.
minutes left.
You don't have to even worry. I'm monitoring the chats and the comments and stuff.
Okay.
So you can go on now and then I'll let you know if we've got anything for you.
Okay. Okay. I'll leave it off with this because we're pretty much wrapped up. Again, when you're sick, you go to the hospital. When you have credit problems, visit a professional. Tune into to calls like this. Tune in every week until we end off because every week is building on. And if you guys are getting value, I definitely want to hear it. So, you can drop some emojis or you can put some thank yous in the chats. But seek professional help when it comes down to getting a credit counselor. Um, different credit report agencies or repair agencies. Do your due diligence as well too. I'm not gonna lie. There's some of them that I've seen that are not good. Some of them are I hate to use that word, the S word, but are scams as well too. So do your due diligence and make sure that you are Googling some of these credit report agencies online as well too to make sure they're actually there and they're gonna help you instead of just taking your money because they will charge you every single month to do some of the tips I've taught you are already on this call by doing the work yourself. So, be very, very mindful of that and do your proper due diligence online for some of these companies that you would work with, but seek professional help. So that ends a lot of the conversation that I wanted to that we were here to that was here to talk about today. I can kind of quickly wrap it up and give you guys some key points. As I mentioned before, the importance of patience, that it's not a quick fix, it's going to take time. I mentioned also knowing where you stand and getting your credit report. I talked about tips of how to remove it, talking to specific agencies, talking to the bureau reports, speaking with a lawyer as well to remove certain things off of your credit report, goodwill adjustments. I also dropped a link from the government of Canada as well to understanding collections. We talked about statute of limitations. We also talked about the process of actually getting a report, as I mentioned before. And the reason why it's good to build, basic reason why it's good to build good credit habits. Yeah, any other last comments, questions, or experience anybody else wants to share? We'll leave the last maybe 5 minutes for any questions or any comments that anybody has. And I will.
think. Oh, sorry, Shaq. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'll drop these resources again because it probably got deleted as well. Some of these links that I sent before in the chat box.
And I can do that for you too if that makes it easier. I can
Okay.
reiterate everything
There's
and
any
make
other
everybody.
questions, comments? Now is the time before we wrap up. Guys, this has been fun. I appreciate everybody's time. Again, you guys can be doing anything on a Saturday morning, but you're here learning about credit, learning about different ways to improve your financial health. And hopefully I sparked the fire into some people to take action, not to be scared of these creditors because they want you to be scared. It's knowing your rights, knowing your credit report, knowing as much knowledge as you can, and speaking confidently to them. And learning what to acknowledge and what not to acknowledge and the right things to say on these calls as well too is very, very important.
And also,
Yeah,
I want everyone to remember a really important part of what Shaq said that a lot of people undermine. The information, the knowledge, like being here is the first step. And then the second step is up to you. Have the confidence, know your stuff. Like he said, when you know your rights and that kind of stuff, it's kind of like hands up, don't shoot. You're able to kind of talk, negotiate, and to deal with people with confidence. We have to remember the world of finance, the world of investing is like eat or be eaten type of thing. So if you don't learn how to be a shark yourself as a consumer, you are going to kind of be on the extent of that. And we just want to bear that in mind and just take accountability for our health the same way we would for our physical health, take accountability for our financial health. And being here is the first step. So I just kind of wanted to make sure I zeroed in on that because you mentioned it a bit, but no one asked questions about that. Having confidence and having the courage to actually take that step and do the negotiations and engage. So that part, that's just my little piece, is to remember the importance of that.
sure. Absolutely, guys. Is there any other questions or comments in the chat box, Chanel, for us before we wrap up?
Yeah, I can read some of these comments. They're great. First time here, great content. And that came from Maxwell. So hopefully we'll see you again, Maxwell. Renee said to us, thank you so much. This was very helpful. Thank you, Renee. Hope to see you again. We've got Taja. I think I got that. I like how your name is spelled. Fire was sparked prior to this, but thanks for adding fuel. It's lit. Thanks for the information today. Very informative. Again, it is positive for me to get in touch with you. I need some advice on how to get into the industry because I'm interested in this field. I think that is Randy P. Randy P, I sent you Shaq's Instagram and that he's really, really good on Instagram. I sent you that because I think that that's how I got a hold of him. I think that's a smart way. See if you can DM him. He's also in this. I don't know if he'll message you personally, but I would definitely say use the Instagram I sent you and reach out to him. Melissa said, truly informative. Glad I joined in. Yeah, we've got the link to Hutsy. Both of our handles are here. Most of you guys are familiar with Shack Hall, Shack Real Estate. You've got me, TSK Wealth. What else do we have in here? And appreciate all you guys are doing. It's well needed. There's lots of comments actually, Shack. This was great information. Thank you so much. Thank you guys so much. Can you put Shack's contact in? No problem. I'll do it again. Shaq, I don't know if you want to take the
I've
floor
also
for a
put in my
sec. I'm gonna type.
contact in there
Yeah,
as
I'm
well
gonna.
too.
Yeah.
Yeah. But we're gonna be here again next week, Saturday, same time. I believe it's the same link as well too. Yeah, again, shout out to BBPA for organizing this. They're doing some amazing things in the community. So follow their Instagram page as well too for more information, more professional help. Yeah, I'm excited for excited for today's conversation, excited for the rest of the series. And I can't wait to continue to give you guys some value, some gems, and see your guys' financial situations change, and help some of you guys build wealth through understanding some of the stuff we're talking about, because it all stands with credit. And I do believe it's an avenue where, if used responsibly, can generate some tremendous things for you. And I've seen it done in so many people's lives, and I can't wait for it to happen for every single one of you guys on this call. Thank you guys so much, and I'll see you guys next week.
Ciao, professionals. Thank you.